like because you were trying to do it.
Nope, it literally just didn't download. All right, cool. Welcome back to another episode of Finance with Phil. I am blessed and honored to have a good friend of mine on here on the podcast. Welcome on, Cody. If you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself, because it's almost like you're too great for me to want to put into a box of like who you are and like what's interesting about you. We know each other from doing real estate stuff, but I think we really bonded over a lot of philosophy things. So I'd like to let you do your introduction, and then we're going to dive into some really great conversation.
Yeah, sure. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll just keep it really simple and sweet. Cody Cross. I'm from a small town in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I started doing like my entrepreneurial endeavor. I think I was 18. Yeah, July of 2015, July of 2015, I think. And I started an apparel company. And so I was working in Florida or in Gulf Shores with my original mentor's business partner. And they had just bought like 30 houses. So I was working with this dude, John, and this other guy, Dennis, and me and Dennis were cleaning out houses and installing carpet. So like I was the house cleaner, outer, carpet installer person. This was before I knew what real estate was. I was just like, I needed to make money so I could pay my rent. So my original mentor, Keith, sent me over there to work with John. And while I'm there doing that, I'm like, for whatever reason, I would go fishing at the seawall all the time. And I brought this notebook and I was like, my thought process was like, I want to graduate college with a business degree and with a business. Because for whatever, I knew that, like, I understood like value really, really young. I was like, I need to add value to myself, to the marketplace, and not just be another person with a degree, right? So that was kind of like my thought process. And actually, right before then, I played high school football. I was all district a few times, was really good. And so I got like a walk-on opportunity at the university. So I was playing football. I had just quit. This was the summer after that. So I'm working in Gulf Shores, writing stuff down on a notebook, like business ideas, like what can I do that's really simple? And I thought of like an apparel company. So I was like writing words, like just words that sounded cool on this notebook. And then eventually I came up with the word crimson fin. It sounded cool. So like where I'm from, there's a lot of redfish that people fish for. So I thought red fin is like redfish fin. So crimson fin. And I got the LLC, Crimson Fin Southern Apparel. And I think like my first order was I was going to my friends and being like, hey, this is my logo. Do you want to pre-order a shirt? Like what color shirt would you want? So I pre-ordered a bunch of shirts. So I pre-ordered the shirts, didn't have any money to pay for them, went and built a horse fence in Lafayette with my friend after I got back from Gulf Shores, made like $500, used that to pay for the first shipment of shirts, took those shirts, sold all of them to the people that ordered them, and then just kept that money like in the same checking account for like a year. So I would like get them and then go place an order and then like go sell like that. Then year two, I figured out how to go to the festivals and events. Like I went to a gun show, I went to the pirate festival, just like these local festivals. Because in my mind, I'm like, I got to get in front of more people. So if I'm gonna sell more stuff, I need to get in front of more people. So I would like make the shirts in my room at this little house I was living in and bring those shirts to the market and start selling. Yeah. And one day this lady came up to me and she was like, you need to have a story. And I was like, what do you mean I need to have a story? Like I have shirts. She's like, no, but like, why are you doing this? I was like, oh, well, I'm doing this. So this was my pitch. I was like, this is a new local brand that I started a few years ago. It's called Crimson Fin. And what I did was I drew this logo, got it copyrighted, and now I hand make all these shirts in my dorm and use the money to pay for college. And then this woman was like, just like lit up with like inspiration or something. She was like, I want 4 of them. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. So like people like the story. So I started getting really, really good at that, like just getting attention, moving attention, selling and closing. And I can go into all that whenever, but that was like how I kind of cut my teeth. So I'm selling these shirts on the weekends. I'm talking to my mentor a lot. We're flipping our first house together on his line of credit. So me and his son flipped our first house together on his line of credit. And that's how I learned like anything to do with construction or real estate, which I didn't even know what a 2x6 was before I started my first flip house. But so that's what I was doing for a while. And doing all of that led me into graduating college, got my real estate license, did some digital marketing stuff in between then. And a lot of experience led up to 2020 when we had this massive hurricane come through. So like the summer of 2020, I bought my first like buy and hold triplex, like for myself, from saving up money as a realtor. And I bought my first deal. Storm comes, destroys our entire market. It was the worst recorded hurricane in Louisiana history. It was incredible how bad that could wreck a community. So like 2020, Lake Charles was the most moved out of city in the country per capita, and it was all due from that hurricane. So hurricane happens. I call my friend, my original mentor, who owned a lot of houses during the past hurricane. And I was like, hey, this just happened. What do I do? And he was like, you need to call an attorney like today before they start advertising for it, and make sure that you get all of your insurance premiums and all that stuff. So going through that process, I learned how the process worked for people that needed to get their insurance claims for their houses. Mm-hmm. So what I was doing was like marketing towards, I got my payout, paid off the loan, and then I sold the land. So like I had this first little chunk of money. Now I'm like marketing to buy more houses. So there's a lot of people that this happened to, they just didn't know what to do. They didn't know who to talk to. They didn't know. So I was kind of helping people like either just buying their house from them or getting them in touch with an attorney who like could show them how to navigate these waters. So all that to be said, like all that experience up until 2020, I had saved up a little bit of money. I had done a few deals, and then the hurricane happened and I went and bought, I don't know, probably like 15, 18, 20 houses, and either resold them, wholesaled them, or kept them as rentals, which kind of has brought me to now, where now I'm just very selective on the deals that I do. And I do fewer deals, but make like better decisions. I was trying to keep it short, bro. Like that's like that was the very chapter version.
I love it. So I want to go back to the piece where you said at a young age, you figured out how to add value. And so for someone that's figuring out how to navigate relationships or maybe even break into business, what does adding value look like to you from a personal standpoint? And then also like, what does it look like from a business standpoint as well?
Dude, there's this quote that's like becoming part of me now. It's, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life in which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. And that just means like you pick something and you go, right? So if you Google like what are the two worst businesses to possibly start ever, it's restaurants and apparel companies. Like you should never start your own apparel company. It's crazy how hard it is to actually sell stuff. Yeah, that's what I did. It was like I started an apparel company. Since I was doing that, it led me into rooms, because like if you have something to offer and you're selling something, anything, it could be shirts, it could be services, it could be connections, real estate, whatever it is you pick to sell, you are now adding some kind of value to some market with some product. So if you advance confidently as you're doing that, you will meet with a success that is unexpected. So you'll start meeting people, like you'll just start doing shit, and you'll start meeting people that do other things that invite you to try new things. So like pick something, do it, and then focus on meeting people. Because over time, like you'll have these opportunities just because you're doing something. So like I was meeting people at these local festivals and events selling my apparel, like local business people. It's like, where's everybody go in a small town on the weekends? They go to all the festivals. So I'm selling my stuff, but what that's also doing is that maybe every 200 shirts I sell, I meet someone who gives me an opportunity to put my stuff in their store. And then that guy might know someone who brokers loans in Houston, and my friend might need that guy. So I would say that's like the long-winded version of you just pick something to add value and you just do it. That's like level one. And then in a couple of years, whatever you're picking that you're doing will make you more relationships and more connections. Then you'll have more options as you go on. So I would say like, dude, what I did was so simple. It was just like buy shirts, put a logo on them, go sell them, because you're going to meet people. So I would say like that's like a really practical way, is just like sell something to a lot of people.
So say someone isn't in the aspect of like selling, or say they do sell, they get into the room, they finally meet that person, like conversationally, like how do they navigate figuring out, or even being like, all right, what do I need to do outside of providing the service? Because, you know, that is selling a service and providing value, like for someone to make someone to like buy something. But when it comes to like interpersonal relationships at a personal level, how do they go about like, all right, cool, I'm in the room, I met the person, but I don't know what to do to get access per se. Like say it's someone that, you know, reaches out to you and it's not on like just purely a real estate tip or like purely philosophical tip. They're like, I just want to meet with this guy, but I don't know like how to actually get his attention and capture it to a point that he feels like he's willing to share it with me.
I would say, like in the beginning, don't even try to do that. Don't even try. Like don't meet this person with the sole intention of just getting access to them. I would say like when you meet them, understand that you will have this opportunity to talk about whatever with them later. I would say like if you're trying to get access to people, like don't approach them with like, give me something. Approach them with the understanding that whenever you have that discussion with them, you've got about 15 or 20 ego layers, which is what I call like that. You've got a lot of ego to go through before you can actually have an essence conversation with that person.
Yeah.
For them to actually genuinely want to assist you and to help you, you have to cut through so much shit for a long time. And then you're not having as much of like ego conversations, you're having more like essence, like, and people can sense that after a while. Like it's, so I would say like if you're wanting to get access to people, don't try to do it, and be very aware that you're going to have a lot of conversations with them before they're going to give you any access to anything outside of mere 1-line or 2-line advice. If that makes sense. Like,
I think it makes plenty of sense. I loved on the quote wall of a real estate developer, a commercial guy that I know, it had on his wall, build relationships before you actually need them, because then it comes off from the transactional standpoint. And it's like, if it's a transactional thing, then it's like, you're paying me with like money, or you're paying me with like something else. It's not like, I'm just going to be like, cool, like I've worked a hell of a long time to figure out everything that I know. And now you want access to my information and you want it for free, when it's really like, there's always going to be a price. Like there's a price that was paid like to learn and to do everything. And there's normally like a price to pay as far as like building relationships or building the essence of like true relationships, so that people want to do the extra things like to help you succeed.
yeah. And I would say like to go like a further step.
Yeah.
And add on to what you're saying. Be very intuitive with that person. Like, hey, Mr. Such and Such, or hey, person, whatever. If you were my age again, what are you telling yourself? Like, because people like that question, I've noticed I've asked that question to people and it makes people very uncomfortable. Like, it wakes them up out of something. Like, instead of being like, hey, Phil, I heard you do this. I do this too. Can you help me? It's like, hey, if you were me, and if you were you again and you were 26 years old, what are you telling yourself?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that question, like, it makes people uncomfortable and it makes them think. It doesn't make them think that you're needing something from them, but it makes them think. So they're getting out of their like daily minutia. That's a fun question, dude. I found that to be like a very cool, fun question that I've asked like older people. And I genuinely want to know. I'm like, I'm taking information in order to acquire wisdom.
Yeah.
As a young person. If you're going to pass down wisdom to yourself or to your son, what are you telling yourself? And it's not the answer. It's not that you're after that answer. It's that the fact that that question opens them up.
Yeah.
They know that you're thinking about stuff. They know that you're like, how can I like do really good stuff? So that's my answer, dude. I think like you just, and you said this before we started doing the interview, it was like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Just be yourself around a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then the more people you're around yourself around, instead of trying to go after like one person, try to go after like 10.
Yeah.
And then whichever person like really just enjoys your company, then just hang out with them and get their advice, and not trying to get this information to like one person that you think knows everything because they are really good at doing something.
Yeah, I love it. There was a podcast that another buddy of mine had sent me some years ago called the Happy Not Perfect podcast. And the guy that was on there was named Adam Richardson. And he talked about the concept of having elixirs in life and how he didn't believe in like really going to events where it's like a crowd of people, or if he ever goes like to an event, he tries to go find one person to establish a meaningful connection with, and then like build through or talk with that person and like go on. But he's like, when it comes to interacting with people, we never leave neutral, right? And so he's like, you either leave feeling like refreshed or you leave like feeling depleted. But even if you believe in actually feeling neutral, why would you spend any time in spaces that are neutral or negative when you can spend in a place that's like refreshing and that's positive? It doesn't mean, you don't have conflict like within relationships, but like generally, like what does that interaction actually look like? And I think that that's a concept that I try to utilize heavily, not only with like the people that I interact, but also with the things that I do. So it helps shape like, all right, cool. Like I may be doing a bunch of different stuff, but like, are these all things that I enjoy? All right, I may be in a bunch of meetings, but are these meetings with people that I actually want to have conversation with, that I actually enjoy spending time with, that I enjoy like mentally sparring with? Like, and when those things align, to me, I feel like it makes like a much more like fulfilling life. But to segue on the question, or I like the aspect of like asking the right questions. I'd love to know, like outside of like, what would you do at this age? What are some other questions that you feel like you've utilized to either ask yourself or also to like ask other people that have invoked those kind of conversations where you've got a lot of insight?
Like, what questions am I asking myself right now?
Yeah, some questions you're asking yourself and some questions you've asked other people, some questions to open like your mind and perspective as you've kind of like navigated moving and accomplishing everything that you have. And then some questions that you've asked of like qualified people who are sometimes just people in general that have lived a long time on how to actually like become better, or like to learn something to like sharpen your iron.
Dude, I've been on this question a lot. Like like, who am I?
Yeah.
What do I want? What am I doing here? What can this person teach me, regardless of the interaction? Is this person showing me something or someone that I'd like to be like? Or is this someone who maybe needs me to be very present in order for them to be how they're being, so that maybe they'll hear themselves talk and change their behavior a little bit? So it's like every person that I come across now, not every person, but like I think about this a lot. Like, what level of consciousness is this person at right now? What questions are they asking themselves? And how can I serve this person? Always. That's like how I think about things now. Like, how can I serve? How can I serve? And it goes down to this like Maslow thing. I think it was Maslow or Nietzsche, one of the two. But there's like this, I think it was Carl Jung actually, but there's like the athlete stage, the warrior, the politician or something, and then the spirit. Really 4 like levels of development of a person. In the athlete stage, you're primarily focused on your appearance, like your body and how you behave. And then your warrior phase is like you're out in the marketplace, like shaking trees, making things happen. And then in this, like, I don't think it's called the politician stage, but it's something like that. You can probably pull it up and see it. But it's like, but it talks about like, how can I serve? How can I serve? And then the spirit phase is like, you are like constantly in a higher level of consciousness, like where you see yourself in other people. Like, I'm you and you're me. And we may look different and be from different places, and we might talk different, but like we're the same. So like that, and being able to do that is like where compassion and empathy come in. So like, dude, I wasn't able to feel compassion or empathy for a long time. To where now, if I see someone who's like begging for money or like they're homeless, I don't think like, oh, they just need to get a job. That's not what I think about. I'm like, this person that I share a soul with, what events did they have to do to get them to that place? And how do they talk to themselves now that they're at that place? So it's like, how important is it for me to ask that question, who am I? What do I want? What do I want the world to receive from me? And to just be kind. So it's like how we're talking about, so the essence of relationship building, why are relationships important, is because you enjoy the company of the other person. Like that's the relationship, is that you enjoy this person. So how can I be more enjoyable to be around, more helpful, and more from a genuine place of service in everything that I do? Like for an example, I'm flipping a house right now. And 4 years ago, I would be like beating up this buyer over every little cost. Like not personally, but just like, because you're thinking like that, you know what I'm saying? Like you're just like,
Yeah.
how can I get every single dollar out of this? To where now I'm like, I've done what I can do. How can I serve this person? How can I ensure that whenever they buy this from me, they're actually going to enjoy this product? And I'll make my profit, hopefully. But like, how can I serve this person? How can I serve the other agent? So that's the questions I'm asking now, dude, is like, outside of all the racket, how can we just be? How can I be here now? And how can I serve other people? And I think that took a weird freaking turn, bro. But that's where I'm at right now, is I'm asking those questions a lot. Like, because you get to the end of the road, man, like you get to this place where, and I think it's different for everybody, like there are different levels of like financial comfortability.
Yeah.
And there's also this conversation of like being comfortable versus being like self-acceptance. Like complacency versus self-acceptance is like, that's like a very interesting navigation. But I'm like, okay, I feel good. Like I feel good. Like, and I feel good because like most of my financial obligations are taken care of. What does that do for me? That allows me to be more present. It allows me to like go on walks and actually feel the wind and just be there and not be anywhere else. And I fail at this like 50 times a day, you know, but like, that's what I feel like is taking place inside of me. So I think beginning my entrepreneurial endeavor, or just life, I guess, I was resorting to a lot of external things to give me something, instead of like going in and realizing that I'm all I ever have, like that I'm okay. Yeah. And ever since I've been doing that, your magnet for good people that you want to build relationships with becomes even more profound, because you're not trying to get something from someone. You're just sharing this life with another person. Then those types of relationships, I mean, dude, I'm nervous, bro. The amount of opportunity I'm going to get in these next 10 years. I don't know what I'm going to do with the amount of opportunity that I'm already being given, because I'm getting picky. I'm like, I get deals brought to me all the time. People are like, oh, you can do this deal with me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, my space and my comfortability is way more important to me now than making more money or meeting more people. It's like, so I hope that answers the question, bro. I'm going like way down that rabbit hole. You wanted me to do the philosophy thing, and here we are.
I love it. I think that like, I wholeheartedly agree with you, because I think at some point, once you've done a lot of the reps and spent a lot of the time, like you get more particular with like same thing, like who you're spending your time with, what you're spending your time doing. Is it actually like serving like towards the end goal? And I think it was a question that I was gifted, or questions that I was gifted by an old friend of mine when I was in college. I was in my either freshman or sophomore year. But it was 3, simple, to the point. I used to love like asking it on like either like first dates or like with like meeting people. And it was, what do you believe? What do you want? What do you love? Simple, open-ended, no right or wrong. It really gives you a lot of insight to like how people think, what people value, you know, just like where their headspace, like actually is. And I think in a lot of cases, like, you know, the whole aspect of like kiss, like keep it simple, stupid, like the simplicity like always wins without, when you don't put guardrails around like, well, I think that answer should be longer. Like your answer shouldn't be anything. Like your answer is your answer. Like, am I at peace with like what that is? And the aspect of like, if that's all that's like there, I'm good with that. A buddy of mine asked me, because he was like, man, like you're really good at like meeting people, like talking to people, like, you know, what do you think is like something that's like advantageous for you? Because, you know what, we all have strengths and like weaknesses when it comes to life. And I said, one of the things that I think helps me out when navigating any room or like meeting people in general is the aspect of, I believe most people treat people like they're not interesting until they believe they are. And then they like, are they interested in like hearing more, talking more, whatever. I treat everyone like they're interesting until they show me that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, like I pull away, like the way, if we start conversations, start throwing around numbers and deals and different stuff, they're all like, oh my God, like, dang, like that's, now we're interesting, right? In comparison, like if you treat everyone like the same as they're interesting, you have no idea, like the vast of knowledge, the like the vast of experience, the philosophical aspect that's actually there instead. And until you kind of like switch, and everyone's a lot to like navigate and live life however they want, that's just something that I found to be advantageous. I feel like it gives that room to like have more authentic conversations, because like I'm not only talking to you because I may want something from you. That's when it becomes transactionally as well. Like, oh, like, okay, oh, like, so you do this and this and this, like, oh, there's something I can get from this, but there's something I want from this. And then it's even more ignorant when it's like they don't have the understanding or the navigation of how to add enough value that the person's even interested to help them with whatever that thing is.
Yeah, dude, I think we stop too soon. Like there's a book that Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra, I think they like co-wrote it.
Yeah.
And the title of it is like how to get what you really, 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 really want. And it just shows, man, like there's always more to people. Like if you approach somebody at a conference or just anywhere, like you're talking to somebody, you're like, hey, what are you passionate about? They're gonna be like, I'm passionate about my dog. It's like, okay, what about your dog? Well, I really like that he does this thing. Okay, what about that thing? Well, he does this, but other dogs do this, and I don't know why he does that. I'm like, okay, cool. So why that dog and not your cat? There's always like more to discover about people.
Yeah.
And those types of questions, like if you're transactional, you can ask that question, they're going to give you an answer, and then you're going to ask another question. Instead of like diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper to where you can get people to where they're just very vulnerable and open.
Yeah.
Just by asking them these discovering questions, dude. And yeah, bro, like and then eventually you start to see it in other people. Like nowadays, like I'm trying not to judge people, but I can tell like when they have it. I'm like, oh, like you have it. Like you feel like you have it. Like you have this thing that in my life so far, I've called people like magic men or like magic women, is that I can see it. It's not based off of the actions, not based off of what you say or how you compose yourself or anything. It's literally because like something in me recognizes your thing. Like I have a friend who's a comedian now who he used to work for me selling my shirts a little bit. And he was really just kind of like following me because he didn't know what else he wanted to do. He was just looking for somebody to follow. Like didn't have a dad. His dad died when he was younger. He needed someone to look at. So I'm like, I just happen to know him. He likes me. And so like we're friends. And at a festival, he was like, what do you think I should do? And I was like, what do you like to do? He's like, I like comedy a lot. I'm like, okay, why do you like comedy? He's like, because I like making people laugh. Why do you like making people laugh? He's like, because I want people to feel good. I'm like, why do you want to make people feel good? And we kind of stuck on that question for a second. And I was like, it's because you see your purpose in that. Like your purpose comes from that. Like not your purpose, but like the purpose is in that.
Yeah.
You recognize that you enjoy making someone do something. So it's like, don't do anything that doesn't bring you this enjoyment, enthusiasm, or like you gotta have that. So, but he's like 22 at the time. So, and he doesn't have any money. He doesn't need any money. So I'm like, dude, give the comedy thing like 5 years. You're 27 and you're still young. You don't need to have you don't have a girlfriend. You live with your mom. Like, you don't need to make money. You don't need to be working for me. You need to go do your thing. Dude, fast forward, that's probably 5 years ago, 4 years ago. This dude makes a full-time career out of stand-up comedy, and he's not even that funny. Like, he just shows up, bro. This dude, I'm telling you, is such a good example of what you're saying about, like, dude, relationships, they just evolve. Like, he's not even a funny dude. He just shows up at all the places.
Yeah.
And then he has his own events. So he figured out, like, ooh, I'm going to have my own event so that I can host other comedians so that they'll host me on their shows.
Yeah.
So that's like where you can add value, right? So like if you're a comedian and you're trying to get your place, host your own show, invite comedians and pay them for showing up.
Yeah.
If you're a real estate dude and you're looking for real estate, host your own real estate meetup. You're going to have people that come that are bored on a Thursday evening and want to come by and say hello. But that's where those relationships get built. I'm going off on a tangent again, Phil. You got to.
No, it's good. And I think the whole point of, like, I've met a lot of people that do all types of stuff, right? And I think similar to what you're saying, like, he was able to do it, and like, he's not even that funny, right? Like, and I think it's from the point of, like, staying consistent at something. Like, it's like where opportunity, like, meets you, right? Like, if you just continue doing the right thing, continue doing it, there's no guarantee, like, that things work out, like, ever, but you're a lot more likely being consistent. If you're consistent going to the events, if you're consistently having conversations, if you're consistently doing deep work, like, eventually, if the universe may have it, because we know it's a bunch of chaos and we can go into, like, a whole thing of nihilism, but we're going to save that for another day. I think they're really, like, you have the opportunity that, like, comes. It's like, I love a quote that another buddy of mine used to tell me. We were having a conversation, one of my old students playing basketball. A guy was like, oh, like, I know you from somewhere. And I was like, where do you know me from? So we started talking. He's like, oh, like, you were my teacher. Because I taught as a graduate teacher when I was finishing on my master's. And so he was asking me and the other guy who has a private clothing brand where he makes, like, upscale, like, suits and stuff. And now, like, does a lot of big mastermind stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, like, how do I get into the rooms of, the people that, like, I want to meet? And he was like, well, if you want to get hit by a car, you go play in traffic. So you need to go figure out what kind of traffic you want to play in. If you say that you're interested in real estate, go play in real estate traffic. Like, go to all the different events, go to the meetups, like, go to the stuff with, like, Invest Atlanta or, like, whatever kind of city, like, you're at, like, go when they're doing, like, different probate events, like, whatever it may be, like, surround yourself, immerse yourself in that. And you're a lot more likely to come across the kind of person that's like, bet, like, I think, like, I'd be interested in helping you. Because I think that's another value proposition some people don't realize. And I've also been able to, like, benefit off of this, like, in life. For sometimes the value that someone gets from the interaction with you is the aspect of helping you. And people don't realize that's also an option. But it takes a special type of person, for the most part, for someone to look on the other side and be like, like, dang, like, I see something in you that, like, I want to help and I want to nourish, and I don't need anything from you. I just need the willingness and openness to, like, you're willing to learn from me, and vice versa. That's why it's like, not only, like, pick mentors, but your mentors also have to pick you, because they have to realize, like, it's a time commitment, like, more than anything else. It's a time commitment, it's an energy commitment, it's emotional space, like, depending on the kind of level and type of, like, mentorship that's there. I think sometimes people don't realize it, like, that's actually a really good value prop. If you can, get in front of the person that you really want to learn from, who's also like, like, I like you, and, like, I want to help you, like, get to wherever you're going. Because we don't do anything great by ourselves. It's always along with someone else. Even, like, your first real estate story, talking about how you had a mentor. The first time I got into real estate, which was, like, very, like, random. Well, the first time I got into it, well, like, I actually was putting my own money, not helping other people with projects type thing, was because I went to go to a driving range with a buddy of mine and met another complete stranger that was next to us, who asked me about the stuff I was working on. I was like, oh, like, I know someone you need to know. Never met this man a day in my life. We just had candid, real conversation about, like, life and different stuff. And he literally, we're on the other side of the driving range, and he runs up to me with the phone. He's like, oh yeah, no, here's a guy right here. And just hands me a phone. I'm, hello? Like, and then fast forward a couple of years, like, that was the person that I did my first development deal with. And so it's crazy how, like, just being authentic, being in your space, like, learning how to communicate. Like, one of my favorite quotes right now is, like, your quality of life is based off your quality of relationships. and your quality of relationships is based on your quality of communication. So if you learn how to communicate, you can have anything you want out of life.
Dude, that's the magic man shit, bro. That's what I'm talking about. That's the magic shit, man. I've seen people just they have this thing, like what you're doing and all of the stuff that you're touching in, just from my limited experience of like knowing you and knowing a little bit about what you do, like it's wonderful. Like it's a beautiful thing with what you're doing. Like you're doing a lot of different things that are you. Like you're showing your value to what you're doing constantly. And like that's magic, right? Like the communication piece of this stuff is magical. Like another practical ass example of my ethereal mystical statements of like magicians and shit, like advancing confidently in the direction of your dreams and you meet with the success. So I remember like I'd saved up my first like 20 grand from selling my t-shirts, and called my original mentor back. Anyway, I'll back up a little bit out of that. My first like flip house, we got a 2-year paid in advance rent check for that house. So we didn't sell it, but I had my rent paid for 2 years based off the cash flow from that house, because someone wrote me like a $43,000 check to live in the house. Like so who the hell knew that was going to happen after 9 months of renovation? No one knows this stuff. Like you don't know, but you're setting yourself up to possibly receive the benefit of doing something.
Yeah.
That happens, it's rented out. So I go back to selling my stuff on the weekends, right? So like that's like my thing. I'm selling, making $2 grand a weekend selling shirts. And my cousin calls me, who's a contractor, and he's like, hey, I have this house. I know you flipped this house. Somehow he knew that's what I did. He's like, come look at it. So I went and looked at it and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll definitely do this deal. So I went and had breakfast with my original mentor, because I'd saved up that 20 grand. And I was like, hey, I finally saved up enough money for a down payment for a construction loan to do this deal, right? Yeah. And he's like, don't put any of your own money into this. He's like, find someone else to give you the money to do this deal. I made one phone call to my friend, and then his dad gave us the money, and then we flipped the house, and we both made like a $25,000 profit at the end of it. But it was the communication, bro. It wasn't the money. It was the fact that I was doing something, made the 20,000 from selling shirts, called the right person, had breakfast with the right person that told me the right thing to do, the best thing to do, called that person, pitched the deal. They bought it with all their money, and we flipped it. It was just communication, dude. It's magic. It's like this thing. So like relationships and communication are everything. And then money tends to find it. Yeah. But money always finds nice places to stay. Yeah. You know, it always finds its way. Like it'll find its way to like go into assets or like go into people or go into whatever. But dude, you're making me like think of so many like past things that I've just kind of like forgotten about. I've just been like straight on the future oriented stuff. But yeah, dude, like it's magic, bro.
We all have 2020 in hindsight, right?
Yeah, man.
All right, so let's matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I wore the shirt, Nashville. And so masterminds, like you've attended a lot of masterminds, you're in a lot of different groups with different people. Like what was the first mastermind that you kind of got a part of? And what do you feel like you've been able to pull out of it that makes you want to continue interacting and going to these masterminds and getting alongside like other people?
Dude, the mastermind thing is cool because there's like, so I would say that the pitfalls of a mastermind, we'll start there. The pitfalls of it are that like everybody's doing stuff. Yeah. Anyone who's paying a couple grand to hang out with some dudes to like learn, they're doing some stuff. So you have to really be careful to not have the shiny object thing. That's like the biggest pitfall is like, don't go into these things and thinking like, well, this guy's doing that. I'm only doing this. I'm only here and he's there. I'm the same age. Like all those things. Yeah. Because if you really start to talk to those guys, like they're struggling with the same thing. Like they're just trying to get to the next level too, or whatever the intention is. So that's the pitfalls of it. The awesome part of it, which is 99% of it, 1% of it is that. It's the only bad part. The good stuff is like, I feel like the first one was really good because you could tell that people are meeting with an intention. There's an intention to mastermind about what they are doing. and what your perception of what they're doing is. And like people have done this for me, I've done this for a lot of people. Like they'll tell me they're what they're doing, and I'm like, dude, just do this. Like do this little millimeter shift, and it's going to change your whole trajectory. And that happens, and I'm like, holy shit! I was like right about like this little thing. So masterminding is like, it's a different switch that we all have, because the intention is totally different from a conversation. And if you're there for a few days, the intention and the conversation hopefully have a good blend where like you're doing some conversational stuff, but you're also doing masterminding. And it's also very exhausting, bro. I find them to be very exhausting, like at the end of it, because I feel like I'm trying to pour into so many people just naturally. Naturally, I just want to be like, dude, this is so awesome what you're doing. Like, let's like share and talk and communicate. So like I feel exhausted, but I also feel energized at the same time. It's like not necessarily, maybe there was like this particular fuel that I wanted to give to something, and now I'm out of that fuel, but now I have this new thing to take with me for the next time this happens.
Yeah.
That's masterminds. I mean, I hope that was like a really good like just description of it. I think they're awesome. And if anybody has the opportunity to get into one, just do it. Pay the money and get in, just so that you can experience like what these things are. Because we really don't know what they are. Like we don't know really like what we're doing. You know, we're just gathering with an intention, and then things happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's like placing the right people in the room and then just letting magic happen, because it's not like when we go to events and stuff, it's like you definitely have to leave with a contact, or like you definitely like have to leave with a new business idea. You definitely have to leave like better or something. But like the intention is to like come in and like share and then sharpen iron at one way or another. Because like you were saying, like anyone that's willing to pay amount of money just to sit down and hang out and like really like go deep. I think that's the other thing that I really love about masterminds, or the right kind of masterminds, like when you have the ability to like really go deep unfiltered, not you know how you're portraying to the world, which is, you know, still important. Like a lot of people in the business world, they have other stuff going on, but having the kind of space where it's like you can be super vulnerable to like all different levels, and then be like, all right, like this is where I'm at peace, but this is where I'm at. What do you think? This is what I want. What may I be missing? Like, what's the thing that might be in between? Like, what's the other like piece of value that could be added in to now help super accelerate from other people that are qualified to like have the conversation and actually understand like what's important. That's one of the things I found most interesting, even about like Nashville. Like most people probably think with all of us that got together, we're sitting around talking about how to do 1,000,001 deals together. And I'm sure there's a lot of deals, and some of us are already doing business together, et cetera. But really the meat and bones of it was like, what can everyone do to live like more fulfilling lives? Mm-hmm. That was really like the one thing that I took away from majority of all the conversations that I had, like what's needed to like live more fulfilling lives. Like the question and the step back of like, all right, like what I need to do, like, dang, like, you know what, like I need to be more intentional, like spending more time with my family. Like, all right, cool. Like, and that was a realization that other people had that I also was like, dang, like I think it was a conversation we were having with Matt, and he was like, he wishes he would have slowed down some of his financial success so that he could spend more time like with his wife and like with his family. And I'm like, that's, you know, they don't hear that from people that like, I have 8 figures of an asset class that I wish I would have slowed down and how quickly that I made money so I could have more harmony within my relationships.
Dude, it's the little breadcrumbs, right? Like it's success leaves clues. And I think that's where we're all like, just like what you said, we're all gathering to allow the magic to happen and to listen to each other, and like, because we all want to be better men at the end of it. You know, we want to be better people. Like we want to be the best version of what we can be. And we know that we're deficient in a lot of areas and we're sufficient in some. Yeah. And like, I think that's what creates the ability for fulfillment to be a discussion, is that we're all vulnerable. We're all just kind of like, dude, yeah, I mean, I could tell you right now, I'm worth $1 million in 26. I did all this stuff, but it's like, but that doesn't serve anything. But if someone approaches me, they're like, hey, I need to make 10 grand to pay off my credit card. That's exciting. You know, like, or somebody else in the group that's like, hey, I'm already doing 100 grand MRR every month, but I'm really sad all the time. Like, what's the delta? Like, what's the fulfillment? So it's like the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. is the Tony Robbins thing. But fulfillment really is an art, bro. Like, to be fulfilled. So what gives you the optimal amount of fulfillment right now?
Serving, man. Like even like offline, me and Cody had a conversation a couple weeks ago, post Mastermind. So I was like, the thing that I feel like I'm stuck in between, just so you guys have context, and we talked about this earlier, like having context behind the stuff, is like, I love doing so much work that like I would do it for free. Like, and the aspect of like, at some point, like there's still a business obligation and things that are going on. And I try not to mix those two things together too often, but sometimes, like, since finance is the thing, it ends up bleeding like one way or another. And it was a good point that was brought up like by Cody, even when we were having this conversation, other Cody as well. And he was like, well, at that point, you end up doing a disservice, because then you'll not be able to serve as many people as you'd like to serve if you end up burning out or not in the position that you can just keep moving like at the pace that you move, right? But the thing that I love is like the fact that I can go around Atlanta and like point to a lot of different places, like, dang, like I helped that person buy that house. I helped that person like get that other investment property. Like, oh, like this was like the person, they were graduating, they needed a connection to get to a job. Like I was able to do that. I was able to teach someone like how to do this. I was able to help one of the kids, like just like an actual like example of stuff, help them navigate grief from like a friend dying at 15. Like the first time I dealt with like real grief from someone that was close to me, I was 20 and I was screwed for like a hot minute. So it's like the different ways that you can now go and like help improve people's lives to do the things that you did quicker, sooner, faster, and give them the tools or resources or the connections to do it. To me, that's a life of fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, like 500 years from now, who's going to know that you really existed? Like, and who cares? As much as like a lot of people like legacy, like I want to have this thing. We all went to different colleges for the most part. And there's a guy's name on the building that no one knows or cares about. Just like I got class at like 2:00. Like they're not thinking like, who was the guy that was on the building? Like normally until like you get to the point where you're maybe thinking about like legacy, or like, you know, people whose family own like aspects of it. You're like, dang, like what they do? They're like, they bought a whole building. That's fascinating. But I think at the other level, like people are just trying to like navigate and get through life. And I think one of my favorite books, Third Circle Theory, and it talks about the 3 rings of life and how like you're the center of attention in the first 2 rings. And then you're focusing on something, you're on the outskirts and you're focusing on something else in the 3rd ring. In the first one, to get to the end of it, you have to get to a point of like understanding self, understanding emotions, etc. To get to the end of the 2nd circle, this is where you become very dangerous. You're also like, this is where you become normally a millionaire or billionaire, if that's something that you care about. And it's because like you start to understand people and cultivate leadership. And this is where you become one of 2 things. You either become a master helper or you become a master manipulator, because you're sound and grounded in who you are, what you want. And now I'm also able to pull that out of other people and understand what's there. I mean, that's the reason multi-level marketing companies crush it, because they're sound in their beliefs and everything else. And now they understand other people. Oh, you hate your job. Oh, you feel like you're meant for more, or like there's more like that you're supposed to get out of life. Like here's this avenue where like all you got to do is screw over everybody you know and like get them to like buy knives or like buy products on Amway, whatever it may be. But now that's how they're able to suck so many people like into it, because they've been able to cultivate, you know, that aspect of leadership. Then getting to the 3rd circle is more so you're focused on something like that's bigger than yourself. And so for me, like where I think I end up spending most of my time is either trying to masterly like help people like do things like the right way, the ethical way. I get so many freaking DMs about like, oh, like help me do this, or like I need help with this, I need help with this. And I'm like, all right, if you can be concise and like to the point, because sometimes if it gets flooded by like other stuff, I'll answer your question like every time. And I'm going to give you like a real response. I'm not going to cookie cutter. I'm not going to give you a one size fits all. Like I got to reach out like, oh, like I want to get into like buying businesses and like doing different stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. But like, why? Like the same way you're like, it's the rings of like the conversation. Like, why does that matter to you? Like, well, I'm starting medical school and like, I'm actually, you know, I want to be a doctor, but like, I don't want to work past 40. Okay. Why? Like all these things are like deeper and deeper. Like if that's really what matters to you, like why take on a whole bunch of debt if you just want to go into something where like you're going to exit, right? Unless you're going to be the kind of surgeon, like you can knock out your debt, like, or the doctor or physician, you can make a bunch of money, pay down your debt. Then you have a high like income cannon to throw at a bunch of different stuff. And you'll also have relationships where you can now like build and like pool money together to do stuff. Cool. Like that's the thought. But the thought is like, I'm doing this because like, this is what I really want. And I'm too afraid to go after this. Like you may need to reevaluate. And I was like, that's outside in speaking in. I was like, I don't know everything about you, but like, I think you need to understand your why so you can do whatever how that you actually have. And I think being able to have like those real like candid conversations where it's not always a stamp of an answer. A friend of mine's like, you pretty much always answer a question with a question. And I was like, normally because it's something deeper that's like beyond that, like they're asking a question that's here, but then like, all right, like what's really under here? What's the driving factor? And so, yeah, I think I get a lot of fulfillment out of being able to like help people guide and navigate like through those things. Cause those are questions that I like also had to figure out for myself. Like people know me a lot for finance, but they don't know, like I worked in healthcare for 5 years, that I lived in the Dominican Republic, that I lived in Greece working in hospitals, like that I spent a lot of time doing nonprofit work in Kenya as well, that I do scholarships over there, like that I do a lot of stuff outside of just like finance and Turo and Airbnb and like development and stuff. Like there's so many other building blocks of like what brought me to like where I am. But I love that like it's people are going to be unexplainable, right? Like I think that's one of the funnest things about life. Like everyone isn't supposed to understand like everything. And that's what we're talking about. Social media is like not only like curation, but you can only curate or show so much of yourself, right? And like live in your authenticity, like post what you actually want, because like whatever reason you're doing it. And I try to use social media to more so produce and like consume, because it is built to literally entrap your attention. And I'd rather like live in the present moment with present people, but I understand that I still want to help. And I still understand that like, I'm not going to be able to spend 1,000 hours, like literally just having conversation with each and every person. But I know that I can share part of my story. I can be intentional, like how I share and document what's going on. So it is like applicable to someone else. And then they can do something, and if they have something specific beyond the basic, let's talk.
Yeah, dude. It's another thing I heard recently that I thought was really cool was like all thoughts are magical lies.
Okay.
I think I'd like to talk at length with you sometime about like the nihilism approach to things,
Yeah.
versus the silver lining between the nihilism and the leave your legacy thing. I've never ever understood leave your legacy thing. I think I've always understood like, dude, I'm only here for like a little while and then I'm not.
Yeah.
And if I can have a legacy, the only legacy that I would like, the only message that I'd like my legacy to be a message. And that message is to like serve people and be kind. And it's not my message. Like that would be my legacy, would be that I am aware that I'm just a messenger from this universal consciousness, God, whatever, to like pour into other people and to just serve with no intention of like leaving some legacy or something. Because that's one thing I learned, like, dude, like answering a question with a question is because there's always so much more. And that's what good therapists do too, is that they don't solve your problem. Because like, dude, life is not just solving your problems. That's what the intellect thinks. Like we think that life is about solving problems. So like we have this like intellectual capacity. The problem with people that have a substantial amount of intellectual capacity is that they forget that that's not the only valuable thing there is. The other valuable piece of that is that you can just turn it off. Like you can escape. How do you escape without drugs, alcohol? You go into your imagination. You go into your imagination and you follow your breath and you be centered. Then you go back into whatever you're doing. But the intellect, the reason why people are probably a little confused or point out that you answer each question with a question is that you understand that. You understand that the intellectual capacity that we have is very limited, and it can only go so far when it comes to explaining the behavior of a human or explaining the drives of a human, because we have these different motivations and factors and things that, and every cell in our body isn't the same as it was 7 years ago. So like the body is a process. It's a constant process. Like what you want and why you want it change. They change. So you can't just tell someone this is what you need, this is what you want. It's like, no, dude, there's way more to this. That's like so much more discovery than there is like quick to answer questions. And that, dude, that's where I spend most of my time now. Is like when the intellect fails, what else is there? It's like, oh, there's flowers, there's trees, there's people.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm like this, like stuck in that place, but I'm just like my awareness, is increasing. That I'm like can feel these new emotions like empathy and compassion and stuff like that. Like, oh, these people, they're not other. They're me and I'm them. There is no us and them. There is only one.
Yeah.
And you can only get there, I think, if you saw some of these like base level get your money right things, right? You got to get out of survival to even have a chance of not hearing something like this and being like, oh, Cody and Phil, they're just like woo-woo people. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, no, dude, like we're just really confused and we know that we are.
We're at peace with like the chaos of life. And like, I think it's a big piece of that is like being able to like explore and try things. And I think that's the biggest piece of life, and not understanding that subconscious is what drives majority of what we do. Like one of my favorite books, audiobook preferred because I like the voice difference, is like Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And literally talking about like hypnotic rhythm when it comes to life, and not even realize a lot of the things that we're doing is like because we're just doing it out of pattern. Like we don't even know that like we're doing a lot of these things, but like literally pattern over and over and over until like you get help. Because normally like that's not something you can just navigate and understand like on your own as easily as like having someone help and guide you to equip you with tools to be better at like going deeper and understanding like subconsciously what drives you, and the fact that we're literally grown-up children that have had different pieces and events in our lives that have occurred that have shaped how we look at the world, how we interact with the world, how the world receives us, how we want to be received by the world. And that just gets compounded. Like there's little boxes and pieces like underneath of people. But the other thing I had to understand as I age was like, just because you're good at unlocking people does not mean you should open every lock.
Dude, yes. Right. I learned that too, bro. Like, like I can get people.
Yeah.
I can get people there. You know what I mean? But damn, bro, like you got to be really careful with that, because this is a Ram Dass thing too, to like add on to what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's not our job. That's not our role. We're not, even because we have actualized that ability for either master manipulator or master helper. Okay. Mm-hmm. So even if the intention is to be the master helper, and it's unraveling people, dude, it's such a freaking thin ice to walk on, because that's like their own personal thing. So Ram Dass's thing, this is probably in the Bible too, and probably all over religious anything, but it's like, it's not our job to give people their solutions. Mm-hmm. It's our job to allow them a safe place to suffer. It's allowing them to be. Yeah. Not like you need to suffer and this is the place to do it. It's like, but I'm not trying to fix your suffering. I'm not trying to give you the solution.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be here with you.
Yeah.
And my ability to be here with you will naturally dissolve some of this shit that you have going on in you.
Yeah.
What I've noticed about that thing too, bro, is like I've met people that can't stand me. Like, not that they don't like me, but they really can't be around me because they know that I have all these things and I don't talk about them. And I'm just me. Like, I'm just here to truly just to be here with other people. And I can tell that their ego fucking hates that. They're like, this kid, he can see me. You need to get away from him. And I can see their ego just control them. Like there was this one guy at this pool. This is one of the first times I ever realized it, like so profound. Not me, it's not something I have. It's like this gift that a lot of people probably have. But I was sitting there with this dude, and my friends were like, that guy plays for the Buccaneers. He's a return kicker, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he came and sat with us, and he was like, just talking so much shit, man. Just was so fake. He was like, I have all this money, I have all this stuff. These are my girls. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, dude, in my mind, I'm like, you're so full of shit. Like, I know for sure you're lying. Like, you're just here to put on this show. And he turned and he looked, he goes, why is this guy so quiet? I don't like quiet people. And I started to laugh. And I was like laughing. I was like, dude, I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just listening to you. You know, I'm just listening to you. He goes, all right, bet. And then he like walked off. But I noticed that he noticed something in me.
Yeah.
He noticed that I was the noticer.
Yeah.
Right. He noticed that it wasn't me judging, because I wasn't judging this dude. there was part of me that was aware that all of this was a show.
Yeah.
And then his ego, I think, like caught on to it, and it made him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's like people that are like that, they get uncomfortable around people that don't need to show you this or that to get you to like me or something, you know? So it's like, that shit's fascinating too.
That's so real. And I think it's even the same thing when like dating or like meeting people. Like, you want someone that likes you for your character, not for like things that are there. Cause like those things can come and go like so easily anyways. It's like money can be fleeting. Like the same way we were talking about like buddy of mine losing $1 million in a deal. Like you can be wiped away like there, but like, are you still going to be at peace? Like what kind of person are you like when everything isn't going well? I think that's the other thing most people don't get how to navigate or don't see is like super important. If you're catching people when they're always on the upswing or when things are always great, like that's one thing. But like, what is that person like when things are terrible, when things are bad? Like, how do they navigate? Are they still peaceful with like how they are, how they communicate with self, like how they proceed, how they deal with others, how they deal with others' emotions? Like, do they reclude? Like, do they want to go and find answers externally? Like, there's so many other pieces of like life in general, but like it's outside looking in. And like with over 500,000 minutes in every single year, and you take that and compound that times the amount of years that people have been alive, you really think that in a short iteration, you have enough insight and foresight to understand everything about a person. I don't care how good you are. Like, it's going to take a long time. There's people that I've known for decades, and I'm still taking time to like learn more about them because each and every moment is like compounding on top of it. And you don't know about that one thing or what's in those boxes that are also being hidden.
Dude, yeah, there's the last words of like Buddha, when they were like, who are you? Why are you here? Like, what are you, the Messiah? Like he was like, he answered, he said, I am awake. That was the last words of that guy. And he was like, I am awake. And that is the thing, bro. It's not that we're going to fully know. It's not that it's valuable to fully know everything about everyone or yourself when you die. Even though the intellect finds that value, that's not necessarily valuable. What's valuable is the fact that you're aware that you have that urge to be right, to be successful, to be arrogant. You have that urge, but learning how to not be that way and just allowing that to be there, that type of learning can go for many lifetimes, right? It's not just about like knowledge. Like knowledge doesn't give you everything that you need. It's just like, even like what you're saying, like 500,000 minutes a year, even with all of that time that you can allow yourself to get to know yourself, you have different cells in your body every 7 years. You have different thoughts at different periods of your life, and you have different seasons at which you thought those thoughts, and different ages and different health levels and whatever. So it's literally chaos. It's just chaos all the time. But then there's principles. This is where it gets interesting for me, and my like the way that I'm thinking about it now is like, okay, chaos for sure, but there's principles. There's signposts that point to the truth that you can remember. So it's like the principles that mean the most in life are not something that you add to yourself. They're reminders of things you already know. And that's why, like, I think it says in the Bible, like, for people to come to God as little children. It's like, come to me as children. What are children? They're unformed. They're pure joy. They're pure emotion. They're just pure. Boom, I'm a child. Like, so there's a Wayne Dyer thing that I've heard him recently talk about, was like, there comes a point in the shift where you start to return home. Like where you're doing the rah-rah thing, and then you come to a point of realization, like, I could do this my whole life. The numbers just get bigger, but I don't ever feel any better, right? So it's like, once you realize that, you're on the return home. And like the return home is like dying before you die, like dying to yourself before you physically die. So, but what does that do for someone? What does that mean, right? It means that you have to get wherever the fuck you think you need to go as fast as possible to know for sure that's not really what you want, right? Like, you have to go get those things, like go get the Turo fleet, go do the development, go do the whatever, to
Yeah.
know deeply that's not the real meaning of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to go and get what you want
Yeah.
in order to
have that thing, yeah, to have that conversation to do it. No,
it's
like
a paradox, bro. Everything worth knowing in life is paradoxical.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's because even with a lot of the different, when I was navigating what I wanted to do in like life and even thinking like, oh, like I want to do medicine, it wasn't until I went to go work in hospitals and watch surgeries. It was like I watched surgeries go wrong like this close at my feet. And it was the realization of like, dang, like you can do everything right and things still go wrong and people still die. I don't want to do this anymore. But it's like until I literally put myself all the way, it's like imagine like you spend your entire life or like you go through an entire undergrad and then you like do your residency and then go do like another like, you know, specialty like on top of that. And then you get there and then you're like, I actually don't like this. And
how about going through it all the way, having debt and being stuck in it?
Yeah, and there's plenty of people that end up in that situation as well, which is why it's like you have to be able to be honest with yourself so you can be honest with other people and have the courage to be disliked. Like also, actually, that's a favorited book another buddy of mine had recommended, and one of the things that I loved about it is like, and we talked about it, like even in like pieces of the story, even like with the football players, like you should have horizontal relationships, like not just vertical relationships. Even the book Boundaries talked about like making sure you have a balance of like, well, more so like in essence of like God, like make sure you're not purely vertical, and that you still have like strong horizontal relationships as well. And so basically it's just like treat people like people, because at the end of the day, like we're all people, right? Like one person may have this, you may have that. One person may be more athletic. One person may like have come from wealth. One person may have built wealth. One person may not have wealth. But like, can we all be on the even playing field of like, we're literally on this spinning ball, like floating around like a whole nother sun. And then it's like, so what? Like, we're here, you're there. Like, I am because you are because I am. Like, what can we learn from one another? Can we enjoy this interaction together? Or is this going to be in a moment where I feel energized, or is this going to be a moment where I feel drained? And I'm just going to literally adjust my positioning because I can't control you, but I can control my feet and walk away to go somewhere else where I do feel like I'm more at peace.
Like one love, one heart. Let's be together and be all right. Like that shit, man. And I would say like, even whenever you feel the urge to walk away, that there's like opportunity in that sometimes too. There's like opportunity in being around people like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk away too, bro. Like that's always been, even in college, like whenever I go to parties or go out or like whatever, I always drove myself because I would like in my mind, I'd be like walking around and be like, as myself, like my year as I am so bored. Like it would, and I can do that's like, that would like put some more juice into this. Like I have nothing more to give here. So like there's nothing to talk about. But yeah, bro, like we're on this like beautiful journey. And I think that we are having the ability to wake up more people. More people are waking up than ever before. Maybe because we need to. Maybe because like this industrial age mindset, this war and industrial age mindset has led us down this path where there's not as much to fight outside of ourselves, but we fight ourselves. So it's like it's affecting the way that we talk to ourselves individually with this like American capitalism West. And it's sad, man. Like it's not sad, it just is. But like I don't want people to feel bad because they feel like they need to buy something nice to impress the people that they need. Dude, if you can alleviate that and literally be independent from the good opinion of other people, you will live a satisfied life. Yeah. Like you will be satisfied. If you just don't you don't need to look for like like good job like from other people. Like you just do your thing. You will be infinitely more happy. Like, because think about that, bro. Think about if you spend 10 days and you have 10 interviews like this. And in all 10 of those interviews, you're thinking, I gotta be like that guy. I gotta do it. And that's what you're thinking. It's all you think about. And that's your intention of having these interviews, right? Which is not. Let's just pretend that it is. But then those other 10, you're just like, I am me, independent from what this person is doing. I find them interesting. I find them fascinating. I'll serve where I can, but I'm on my journey. Think about like the person you would be at the end of those 10 iterations versus this person with those 10 iterations. Which one can you feel? Like I can feel inside of me which one would be better, which one just naturally is what we're supposed to be, which I think comes down to like the internet and the evolution of consciousness and the technology, is that it's too fucking much, bro. It's too much. Like for us to get information from all these different opinions and different sources, for us to form our truth in our life in this, just too many things to consider.
Yep.
But I think the realization of that helps you form your own little thing.
There's a very interesting YouTube I like called Big Think, and they'll have like experts talk about a bunch of different topics, but one of them was talking about collective illusionism and essentially how like the illusions of the people that came in the generation prior now become like the thoughts or like the most important thing to the generation like currently. So like one of the things like one of the guys has a big data company and they'd like go and like survey people on like a bunch of different stuff. And one of those things was like the answers that people answered, like there was like 80 of the most important things that people wanted out of life versus like the 80 things that they answered like in privately were almost like night and day. Cause like you ask most people like, you know, what do they really want? It's like you think people like want to be famous or they want to be like Insta famous or like something else. You ask kids that, what do they want? They want 1 million followers. They want, you know, 1 billion followers. They want to be like a Mr. Beast or like, they want to be like whoever the hell has like a gigantic social media following. But at the end of the day, like, what's the real thing that like drives it? And it's like, that's back to like the questions, like going deeper, like what's the real, like why? Because like people ask me, oh, like, why do you work so hard? Or like, why do you do so much business stuff? I was like, my real why is like, I want to be a stay-at-home dad. That is really like my thing. Like, I want to be able to like,
I feel that, bro.
With my family. And I understand like the sacrifices and trade-offs that it takes, but it's like, this is just a means to an end. I happen to be good with people, good with numbers, and have found luck by continually moving through a way an opportunity has hit me in a couple of different places. But now it's like, all right, cool. Like, but I understand exactly where I'm trying to get to so I can exactly jump out and do the next thing. And does that mean like I don't ever want to work? Of course not. Like I enjoy the things that I do and I enjoy the things that in the people that I do it with. So like that'll always continue. But like I know the end goal and the anchor for me is like, what can I do so that I can serve more like to the world, but really so I can be present with my family?
Dude, I feel that like so I'm with my wife. I've been with her for 9 years. So this whole journey, she's been with me the whole time. And my original intention, most of my life, was because I knew she was going to want certain things at certain parts of our life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to beat this curve and go ahead and make us like millionaires before we have offspring, before we have a kid. So that whenever you have a kid, you will have certainty in me and my ability to where you can do whatever you want. Like we may not be living in this 4,000 square foot house and making a ton of money, but like you're going to feel good. Yeah. Like I'm going to be able to be with you whenever I want to, not because someone's deciding my schedule for me. So that was like my whole beginning intention, bro. And now we're getting into this conversation where like she's gonna be 28 years old this year, and we're from the South. If you're from Georgia, you know the mentality. It's like you're trying to have a kid before you're 30. That's like what most people try to do. For me, I could wait till I'm 50, but like, but it's the same intention though, bro. Like I want to be able to walk away. That's why like all this rah-rah entrepreneur shit, I'm like, dude, I just want to make my money and help people and fuck off. Like that's what I want to do. I don't really care. It's like, but boy, do we get caught up in it sometimes. Yeah. If our desires are more pleasure seeking, like if you have like very pleasure seeking desires, you'll lose yourself a little bit in your pursuit, which is fine and it's normal, like whatever that is. But like, it's interesting. But like the pool of the entrepreneur, like the entrepreneurship pool that you jump into, you're trying to get out of that motherfucker as fast as you can. Like get in, get what you can, and get out.
Oh, okay. All right. So final question. We'll dive into this. Or maybe final question. What do you think is one of the major misconceptions, mindset wise, right now, of like people wanting to jump into entrepreneurship? Because like personally, the way that I look at it now versus like when I was 20, a night and freaking day. I used to think that like, oh, I never wanted to work for somebody like ever again. And then I realized like you're always working for somebody, whether it's an institution, whether it's a client, whether it's a government organization, like any of those things, it's always someone that you're working for. More so, can you find something like you're good at, that you enjoy, that gives you lifestyle balance? And to me, like, it doesn't matter if it's that or something else. Also, the fact, I think people crap on W-2s because they don't know people that make $500K, $1 million, $2 million guaranteed from their W-2s, which you have a 9% chance of all small businesses of even getting to $1 million in revenue, not profit. So it's like the likelihood, the same way you were talking about earlier, like that curve of like, would I rather slowly make it there in 15 years, or do I take higher risks and possibly get there in 3, possibly get there in 5, possibly get there in 9? And so what are some of your thoughts like around, those things?
Dude, yeah, I used to have the same like 20 to 26, totally different mindset now. Because I think like career is important. Like career is important. So like fulfillment is important. Entrepreneurship is a lie. It's a joke, bro. Like it is great if you're good at it. It is horrible if you're not good at it. Like, dude, that's it. If you're good at it, by all means, if you can be like me and just pray that this flip house sells so I can make enough money to pay for myself for the rest of the year, by all means, like, go be an entrepreneur. Dude, if you can't do that shit, don't do this. Don't get into this entrepreneurship world. But I will say, a really awesome balance that I think would be a really good like mixture is like W-2, because I had this mixture earlier about 6 months ago, because I was like a W-2 person. My friend started an app, gave me a salary and was like, dude, come work with me. And they didn't talk to me, unlimited paid time off, all that stuff. Ended up getting laid off and fired from that because I made the company way too much money and the product wasn't ready for it. But like, I did it because it was fun and I love new experiences. But I didn't really need a job, but it was awesome as an entrepreneur for 7 years, getting a job and somebody just paying me every 2 weeks. That's insane. So I would say, like, if you do the W-2 route, plan your way to have the choice of cash flow to get out.
Yeah. But
give yourself like 10 years. Like, don't try to do this stuff and it's just not worth it. If you have a 2 or 3 or 4 year like timeline, 90, let's say 9% are successful, 91% of the time it won't work. I have 50% leveraged brick ranch style homes that are worth almost, more than double what I owe. I have 8 of them. They're still not consistently cash flowing, bro. And they're awesome package of rentals. So the real reality is like, dude, if you have a good opportunity with a W-2, fucking take it. Like, just take it and see if you like it. And then just keep stacking money, not to save it, to save it to invest it, right? Yeah. That's what I think. I think all the entrepreneurship shit is a racket and it's bullshit. And it's like, quit your W-2, buy this. It's like, dude, why are you telling people to do that? Like, you don't know if that person has a kid and that kid needs childcare and whatever. Because dude, if you play this out over 10 years, you can temporarily quit your job and be an entrepreneur for 6 months and really not be good at it and lose, right? So I would say, like, if you have the opportunity to work in a W-2 while still being entrepreneurial in addition to that, that's the perfect mix. Yeah. For sure. For like mental health, bro. Like, cause dude,
gotta be built for it. You gotta be built for it.
You gotta be insane. You gotta be a little insane and good at it for a long time to actually be entrepreneurial. And it's not sexy. It's not like this great sexy thing.
The cars and the houses and the Lambos and never working and working remotely on a beach, just telling VAs what to do. Like,
it's all bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit because here's why. That VA quits on you. You don't know the systems you've actually built. The COO you hired to do it gets sick and can't fulfill. And now you're bye-bye. So like, but if you're willing to go through that,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Like if you're not willing to go broke, I say don't do it. Like, and yeah, because most people don't make money for the first like 5 or 6 years, like anyways. And also statistically, like just most people don't make it at all. So I feel like not that you have to have that safety net, depending on like your own risk tolerance. Some people are just like balls to the wall. Some people are like, I'm gonna do it slowly and safely. But like that's the thing, like everyone's on their own path, right? So figure out your own path, have a good time while doing it, surround yourself by people you have similar type of values with. Go fail forward, have a good time. Like that's another thing, like really creating a relationship and understanding like the only time you fail is like when you actually like give up or like when you die. Like that's when it all ends. Like if the worst thing is like, I don't want to go broke or I don't want to go bankrupt. If you can accept the aspect of like, if I do this and I go bankrupt, then what? Plenty of people have gone bankrupt, came back and made even more money. Or the same thing, people gone bankrupt and killed themselves. But you got to understand what kind of person you're going to be.
I'm saying, dude, there's also that piece of it.
Yeah, you got to understand like what you're going to be able to mentally withstand. And like I was telling some college students, I was like, it's a lot easier to go live on someone's couch when you're in your 20s than when you're in your 40s.
Or before you have a girlfriend or a wife, bro.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a big piece of this is that I'm married. Okay. Yeah. I'm married to a person who naturally has wants, desires, expectations. Okay. She's been with me the whole time. So it's awesome. Like she is so valuable in my life. It's unbelievable. I love her so much.
Yeah.
But your considerations are different. Like if I go do a deal, dude, yesterday, bro, we were talking about this deal I was doing. And my goal was to make 50 grand. Okay. That's my goal. Pretty damn good goal. Yeah. But I understand what's more important than the goal when you're trying to sell a piece of property, selling the fucking piece of property. Right. So in my like rah entrepreneur attitude, I'm like, this is the goal. Let's hit it. I was like, I might be a few $1,000s short on that goal. And her immediate response is like, yeah, but you know, we could just ask him. And I'm like, dude, you're missing it, bro. Like in my world, in entrepreneurship land, I am praying to close. I'm not trying to execute fully on my goal. I'm trying to close because I understand the risk of this. Every day that goes by, this thing hasn't closed, it gets riskier and riskier. So like, yeah, dude, I don't even know why I went off on that damn tangent, but like, if you're talking about like sleeping on couches at 20 and stuff. So like, practical example of a house hack. I did a real house hack, bought something for 70, put 30 in it. It was worth 200, refinanced 150, got 50 grand tax-free money, right? Boom. Had my friend move in, who's my roommate. We moved to Richmond, Virginia for a few months and then moved back. And he lived with us for a month, okay? If it was me, I'd have that bitch filled with my friends. I'd have 6 people living in this house, but I'd have a wife who, after a month, she was pretty tired of having a male roommate. You feel me?
Yeah.
So like, it's all so subjective. Like per person, what's your situation, all that stuff. So dude, if you have a W-2, don't quit your goddamn job to get to be an entrepreneur. It's not worth it.
Hey man, I appreciate
I hope that's a very full rounded answer.
That's the summation of it. All right, you can leave people with a quote and then I'm gonna call it. So give us one more quote to take home with us for someone that's watching this that hasn't got started, that's interested in like getting going. And yeah.
It's not what you know for sure that gets you in trouble. It's what you know. Oh, no. It's not what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. That's Mark Twain.
I love it. Appreciate you, brother. All right.